Baby, you are gonna go broke showing turkeys like these.
It's turkey time. Gobble, gobble.
What I saw wasn't human.
Oh my God!
It was very tall. And what's more, it saw me. This thing.
Rawhead Rex.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Let's Talk Turkeys. I'm your host, Movie Miss, and I'm being joined this week by my co-host, Drive-In Dave. Hello, sir.
Hello.
So I'm not even going to start. Oh, you got the smile. You're ready to go, but I have a feeling this isn't your bag.
Okay. I'm pretty much in meh with this movie.
Okay, well, I'm going to jump in and stop you and say we are covering 1986 monster based on Clive Barker's work, creature feature, Rawhead Rex. And for me, I think it's a guilty pleasure movie for me, and I absolutely love it in all of its glorious awfulness because I grew up with it. I saw it in, 87 or 88 on VHS. And I was hooked. And that was the 80s when all the cheesy monster movies were the norm. There was no comparison to current day special effects. That was fantastic for the 80s,
Yeah, I mean, the 80s produced a lot of great cheesy horror flicks. And I think everyone's got a guilty pleasure. I mean, I've got guilty pleasures outside of horror. I'm afraid to admit that I happen to like some of the Hallmark Christmas movies because of my mom. And for horror, my guilty pleasure is Critters. I absolutely adore Critters. It's one of my favorite guilty pleasures.
I think you mentioned that on the Gremlins episode. Now, that is from the 80s, correct? Because I haven't seen it.
That is from the 80s, yes.
Well, there you go. The 80s creature movies, for some reason, now are awful, but I still love them. I think it's because I grew up with them.
Yeah, I think that's when you grow up watching the movie, there's like a special bond with it. Like me and the girlfriend a couple of weeks ago just watched Jaws: The Revenge. And she liked it as a kid, but I remember watching it as a kid, and it was my favorite Jaws movie as a child because, you got to see more of the shark. You got to, it was just exciting. Then you grow up later and you appreciate like, okay, what the real good movie was, but you still have that love for what you grew up with. So I can see that with Rawhead Rex. If you grew up on this, watching this, yeah, you're still going to love it.
So about Jaws: The Revenge, I will say, hearing you speak of it in such a wonderful way, Hoagie is very pleased with you.
I love Hoagie. Hoagie, I mean, Michael Caine alone can do no wrong.
Right? That's what I keep telling people. So Rawhead Rex, we can discuss it today as it is a turkey across the board. Critics on Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 25% and audiences of 39%. So not a lot of love for this one. But in the cult underground horror club, I will say that I'm a part of, we love it. So I don't care what the critics say.
Yeah, I don't trust critics, to be honest with you. I mean, most of the movies that I enjoy, critics just demolish. Like I've become over the last couple of years an Adam Sandler fanatic. His movies are stupid, but they're a lot of fun to watch, and the critics hate them. I keep thinking, well, it's because you don't understand. They're there for fun. They're not there to be good movies. Yeah,
I honestly feel like Adam Sandler movies, with the exception when he tried to swing big, like with Big Daddy, and then doing, I want to say, is it Uncut Gems, where he did a dramatic role?
There was that one. My favorite dramatic role from him is Reign Over Me. That was just incredibly powerful. It actually kind of made me cry a little bit.
Other than those, his movies are not made for critics. They're made for the people who just want to sit back and be dumb for 2 hours.
Exactly. I mean, there's sometimes where I'm like, if I'm feeling a little down, having a bad day or whatever, I'll pop on like Grown Ups and I will watch that. I mean, I watched that, I think last summer for a whole week, every single day I popped on Grown Ups and just indulged in a little narcotics and vegged out to Grown Ups.
So Rawhead Rex I will start out by saying it is actually based on a short story, which I own and have read, by Clive Barker. It's from his Books of Blood, Volume 3. And just to note, Clive Barker adaptations that I also feel are based on stories and are pretty fucking good. He wrote Cabal, which spawned Nightbreed. He wrote The Hellbound Heart, which was Hellraiser, and Midnight Meat Train, which is a movie of the same name with Bradley Cooper, and in my opinion, really fucking great horror movie. So he writes some crazy shit. He's not as out there as Lovecraft, and he's not as watered down as King. I like Clive's crazy brain with monster stuff.
I've only actually read a little bit of one of his books. I want to say it was called Sacrament. I think it's all I remember is the cover had a fox on it. And I got to about the half of the book and it got really, really good. And then it goes back to a part of the story that I just got so bored with. And I kind of felt like that was like his strong point is he's good at the horror, but the characterization is a little bit off. I can see what you're saying with King. King can be watered down. But what makes King so powerful is that you are invested in his characters. You really love and care for those characters. And then Lovecraft, yeah, he's just batshit crazy. But it's
Right.
like that's what made it so great, was that he was batshit crazy. And then he used these like $10 words that you don't know what they mean, but you're just fascinated by them.
Oh, I know. I remember on our Unnameable episode, we had delved a little bit into his writing with that and the source material. And he's a bit out there. But so back to Barker, though. He actually wrote the screenplay for this based on his own short story. And having read the story, the movie is, if you take out the bad special effects, the cheesy creature design, and look at just the story of the movie, it is almost true to what he wrote, but they embellish and add the main core family, Howard and the wife and the kids, that drive the plot of the whole movie. That's not in the story. The story is about the monster and when he comes back and what he does, and it follows his journey through the village and then ultimately his death at the end. So the movie does deviate by adding this extra plot point driving the whole movie of the family. And I will say it works. I enjoy that we don't follow the monster through the whole movie because, as I keep saying, he's not the best creature design. And I like that we don't see him from beginning to end for 89 minutes. You know, it's mostly about the family and their encounter with him and what's going on with them. We get to learn backstory about the creature because of Howard, the main character, doing research. I feel like that's a change that works. And I'm really happy that he went with that, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it makes sense because it's I think we've discussed it before that very few times can the source material be adapted to the screen 100% faithfully. You have to change it because you're aiming for a broader audience, and there's like sometimes things just are not going to work out like that. As far as the story goes, I thought this story was actually really good. It was just the little elements that we will get into that just hit me in the face of like, I rolled my eyes and said, oh my Lord, so many times.
Okay.
It's just, you're going to hear so much crap from me in this movie. I apologize.
No, I like it because being a millennial, you didn't grow up on these cheesy movies as much as, Gen X, as much as I did. So I am able to be a little more forgiving. I think my generation is, and these are endeared to us, because we grew up with them. So I understand. And I knew going in that you'd probably be on the flip side, which is fine with me. We can discuss both sides of it. And, I also want to just mention it is not lost on me. The bad stuff about this movie, the laughable stuff about this movie, not lost on me. I just tend to overlook it.
I mean, that's fair. If I had Darkman, you have Rawhead Rex. That's okay. I do want to point out two things. One, I will admit that even though I don't like it, I can still appreciate the good aspects of the movie. I'm not going to completely rip it apart and be like, oh, I wouldn't wipe my ass with this movie. I'm not that kind of guy. And two,
after a few rewatches, I promise you it'll grow on you.
But also, I do want to point out to everyone else that's like, yes, I am a millennial, but I identify as a Gen Xer. So,
and it's all about how you identify nowadays.
Exactly.
So Rawhead Rex was filmed in County Wicklow countryside, which is south of Dublin in Ireland. So the movie's based in Ireland. It was filmed in Ireland. I love that because it is the coolest. They found the neatest sets for everything, places to film. Like I want to go there. I know that place probably doesn't look like that now, but it made me want to go there. Like it was so quaint looking, you know, and kind of removed from society, which is part of the horror element for me. They felt like they were backwoods, out of touch almost, like away from mainstream help.
Yeah, like it kind of reminded me, I kind of got a little bit of a Pumpkinhead vibe where the setting became a character of itself. Like you enjoyed the setting of the film as much as you would enjoy the film and the characters and everything else. It was the setting was just so. And there's a few movies I can name that are like that. Like going back to Jaws, you want to live in Amity. Okay, you don't really want to live in the town of Pumpkinhead, but it was still a nice setting. It kind of helped suck you into the movie. This was like that. The scenery was gorgeous. The people just seemed really kind of cool and friendly and nice.
The local actors, yeah, most of them hired in Ireland. And you can tell the accents and it's authentic feeling. So I love that part of it. The movie did have a limited theatrical release. And if I can find the trailer, I'll tack it on here on the episode because it's very, let me think how to say this. They tried to sell it as a hardcore horror movie because that's what Clive Barker is known for writing, is crazy, bonkers, you know, hardcore stuff and monsters and whatnot. However, it also felt like they were trying to be too mainstream and be like, hey, everybody, come see this fun monster movie. And there's more to it than that. And if you just see this cheesy monster design, you're like, meh, I don't know if a monster movie's for me. So I don't think they marketed it correctly in the sense that there's more to it than just, hey, a crazy monster. You know, it's not just a monster movie. There's some depth there and interesting stuff, I think. Coming from source material, that would make sense.
Yeah, it did feel like there was more to it than just your typical monster on the rampage kind of movie. There was like themes in there that I kind of picked up on that I thought was kind of clever and interesting.
Funny you should use that word rampage because that's going to be in the IMDb plot in a minute.
I'm a little shocked on the limited release because I honestly thought, like watching the entire movie, I thought, oh, well, this has got to be like a major summer blockbuster. This had to have been like nominated for some Oscars of some kind, right? Maybe a special effects Oscar or acting or something had to.
All right.
Has to be some awards in there.
There's the door, sir. No, there's no box office info that I could find. So it must have been really limited. It did do over 655,000 plus in Blu-ray sales, which is not a whole lot, but the VHS, man, that is spendy if you try to go find it like on eBay. I just got finally a few years ago, they were like maybe 10 or less. They released the 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray, which I have. And I haven't watched it because I had the DVD for 30 years. I haven't watched it on my 4K TV with my 4K player yet to see like its maximum goodness and capacity with clarity of the picture. I just watched it in my regular Blu-ray player the other day. So I haven't seen it in all its glory, but because I love this movie, I want to watch. I didn't even do the extras yet. So yeah, I guess all that to say, it's finally getting some love for those of us who really wanted it. It finally got a really good release, and I'm happy about that. People are finding it now a little too late, I think, to really appreciate it.
Can we honestly say that they're finding it? I mean, this seems like the kind of movie that like you're walking home drunk one night and trip over in the middle of the street. And you're like, what the hell is this? Oh, I'll go home and watch it. I don't really say you're actually searching for this movie. This is like an accidental, like, I got nothing else to do. I'll pop this on, see what this is.
Fair.
And I did not realize you were I didn't know you were one of those 4K crystal clear, you can't go back to the old black and white rabbit ears slapping the TV kind of screen person. I didn't know you were one of those.
Oh, I'm categorized now. Don't put me in a box. No, for this movie, I am particular. And again, like I said, I still need to watch it in the glorious 4K format. Not every movie needs to be that way, but when it's something that came from VHS, I don't know how much better they can actually make it, to be honest with you. We'll see.
Yeah, I've seen them try to kind of like, take older movies and then try to like make them better, look better quality and stuff like that. And it doesn't seem to work as well. I think it also kind of loses some of the charm. At least for me, it's like, I want the graininess on old film because that was the charm, is like that just, dirty kind of grainy, like especially this movie. This movie feels dirty. I felt dirty watching this movie. Like I had to shower after this movie.
So that's one thing we'll talk about in the plot walkthrough. So this film, like I said, written by Clive Barker, who directed his movie Hellraiser and Candyman. He had worked with the director of this film, George Pavlo. He's a London-based director. He's worked with Clive before on other projects, something called Underworld, which I'm not sure what that was. But George had only done 6 movies. So I think he did okay with this. I feel that he didn't, Pumpkinhead reference. Stan Winston, being a creature creator and special effects guy, directing that, he knew how to have an eye, even though he wasn't a director prior, to shoot his creation in a way that it didn't look terrible. It looked menacing. It looked good. This guy, George, didn't have that same eye. He didn't know how to shoot this creature in a way that hid the aspects of it that weren't looking the best on screen. I'm trying to be kind.
Yeah, I could see that because there were several times where the monster shows up that it kind of reminded me something out of the old Power Rangers TV show.
But the fact that the creature's head can barely, like, it has no neck and it can't really turn its head. The mouth isn't the best. So even though it's a dude in a suit, in makeup, which is the part of it that I fucking love. I love a monster that runs. I love me some Jason Voorhees that runs. Like, give me a creature that runs because it's fucking scary. So this guy runs, and there's some good shots of that. But up close, the guy didn't know how to shoot it to where you aren't just seeing this big Halloween mask, basically.
It kind of felt to me like this was a design that if they would have had either a bigger budget or if they would have taken more time on it, this could have really worked. It felt like they were limited by what they could do, and that's kind of what hurt the creature design. It looks just fucking ridiculous.
Agreed. I think I couldn't find any budget info either, by the way. So I don't know what the budget was, but I think that I'm able to overlook, and again, maybe it's just a Gen X thing growing up on these movies, overlook the design as much as put myself in the situation and in the feeling. And if you've got some big giant 9-foot thing that you think is going to get you running at you top speed, that gets me scared. I don't care if it looks cheesy. This big thing is going to kill you and it's running at you. And I put myself in the movie, like in that mindset, I think is what I'm able to do and why it still can get under my skin.
To be fair, I can't really talk about that because like I am the guy that will sit here and watch a all-day marathon of guys in rubber monster suits playing around with toy airplanes, smashing fake buildings. So
that's right, Godzilla fan.
Yeah, so it's like I can't really talk. Godzilla never exactly looked scary either. So but this just, I don't know.
Couple of rewatches, it'll grow on you. All right. So top build cast for Rawhead Rex is David Dukes. And no, that is not David Duke, the white supremacist grand wizard. This is David Dukes, the actor, as Howard. We have Kelly Piper, Hugh O'Connor, Cora Venus Lunny, Ronan Wilmot, and Niall Tobin as the top build cast. And we can get to everybody else as we go. And yes, there was a man, well, I should just mention him now, in the Rawhead Rex getup, Heinrich von Schellendorf. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. If not, sir, I apologize for butchering your name.
That sounds like a professional wrestler to me.
He's probably a big dude because when you put that little weird head on top of the costume, he looks like he's 9 feet tall in this getup.
Well, yeah, I thought was interesting was one of the things I looked up when I was doing the research was they wanted Peter Mayhew for this role, but his fee was too high.
That makes sense.
When I
the
saw,
Predator, right? No,
yeah,
Chewbacca.
No, Chewbacca, yeah. And when who's
the Predator?
I don't remember.
Kevin Peter Hall. Okay.
I love him.
Apologies, Peter Mayhew, Chewbacca. Got it. Go ahead.
But I could not have seen Peter Mayhew in this role. The guy who played this monster, I will give him 100% credit. Dude nailed it. Like the enthusiasm and the energy. I was just like, okay, yeah, you're feeling this role, dude. I'm down for it on that part.
Great job, Heinrich. So the IMDb plot.
Oh, there's a plot.
There is, and it's poorly described. Like the trailer doesn't sell it. An ancient creature called Rawhead is awakened from its slumber near an Irish village and goes on a rampage, killing anyone in sight. Now, I don't think he just goes on a mindless rampage necessarily, and he's not killing everyone. He spares people who want to be his followers. I mean, come on. There's a little bit of depth to it. It's not just a mindless monster movie.
No, they put 2 or 3 minutes of thought into this story.
Yeah, I will say it was fun reading the story because I seeked out the books of blood after I saw Rawhead Rex. But after reading the story, after seeing the movie, I was able to picture everything from the movie as I'm reading because a lot of it is in there. Like I said, it made it such a more enjoyable read, much more enjoyable because I'm picturing the movie, you know?
Yeah, I did look up like I said, the backstory on it a little bit, and the one thing I thought it would have been interesting if they would have went with the original design, that it sounded like there was a different design in the book. That might have been a little bit scarier.
Yes, I still pictured the monster from the movie,
I'm
but
sorry.
they don't describe it exactly. The eyes is one thing they really tried to nail. They tried to nail the red, hypnotic, glowing, suck you into the depths of hell eyes, and they couldn't do it. These eyes in the movie are so cheesy and bad. They look so fake. I know that they were trying.
You can say that they tried.
We'll let them have that they tried. Okay. All right, let's jump into the plot. So the movie begins with really ominous music, which I like because you're like, ooh, it's going to be spooky. And we get studio credits. And then we immediately get title card with a sting of the music. And I like that too because you're like, ooh, here we go. And then we fade in on daytime in the Irish countryside. And we see a little minivan looking car just driving along. This passes a field where we see three men using a tractor and some ropes to try to unearth this large stone that's stuck in the middle of the ground in this field, which is funny to me because here's this big field you've been plowing or are going to plow and use, and there's this one lone stone. It's not like a cluster. There's not other stuff around. It's just this one giant totem pole sized stone.
It did kind of like stick out. Like, okay, did no one notice this? Like when you're buying the land, did you not notice there's this giant stone sticking out? And it's not even like it was that. I don't know why they're taking it down. Like, what does he need to do? It's not big enough that, it's blocking anything. You can't plow around it. It could be a nice decorative piece. Maybe you could sell tickets like, Irish Stonehenge or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities there. And I do want to say that the opening of the movie, the music did not match the character driving through the countryside. Like that was the most dramatic casual drive through the countryside I've ever heard in my entire life. I thought like there was going to be like a little old lady, like it's like 15-mile-an-hour car chase going on or something, because it's just so weird.
Yeah, I could see that. A little bit of a disconnect there. So then we cut now back to the minivan pulling into a church in the town of Rathmore. And I noticed the sign said population 251. And I was like, well, just like Amity, we're going to put a little X through that. It's going to go down a few in the next 48 hours. But it looks very quaint and old worldy. The cemetery is right by the church. There's trees everywhere. The buildings are like stone and brick. I've always wanted to like vacation in a place like that. Scotland, Ireland, like it just looks really quaint.
It would be a lot of fun to do something like that, go on like, yeah, nice little vacation and possibly get murdered by a demonic monster that looks terrible.
Let's put the monster bit aside. I would go hunting for Nessie though. That would be fun.
Oh, I would love that.
So the man gets out of the minivan. He goes into the church and we see inside is actually some really cool stained glass windows with really ornate pictures on them. I did like that a lot. One of them features a monster, which we will come to find out is Rawhead Rex. It looks just like him. What do you think of that? Were you like, what is going on here?
I was blatantly obvious that was going to be the monster. So that was like, okay, well, this is obviously a sign of what's to come, and this is going to tie into something later. So they did a good job on that. The design looked beautiful of the stained glass. I was a little like, okay, why is this in a church? I mean, this is like having like a Slayer banner hanging in the back of the church. It's like, okay, something just feels off here. I mean,
right.
This doesn't all fit. This is supposed to be pictures of angels and Jesus and stuff like that, not a disgusting looking monster.
Well, I will say Clive Barker I think he was raised Catholic and then denounced it or just didn't practice or something. I forget what. And being a gay man, he's got specific views on religion in general. And that can be found in most of his writings that have any little bit of religion tied to them. And this one leans heavily into the pagan aspect, like pre-Christ. and pre-civilization, which I really appreciate. I think he does it in Nightbreed too, and Cabal. I'm going to have to read it to be sure. But he's very big on that, on these anti-God, anti-church, pre-Christ type things. And I really actually enjoyed that aspect. And I wish they would have done it more in the movie.
It was kind of cool. I did pick up on that because he does go heavily towards, like, it feels anti-religious, which, you know, that doesn't bother me. I'm not like religious or anything. You know, so it's like it doesn't offend me or anything. It is interesting to see him do that.
Would you say that you're agnostic or atheist?
I consider myself spiritual. Like, I believe in stuff. I just don't follow organized religion. That's kind of where I start to kind of like cut it out. I was like, okay, I don't need some old dude in a dress telling me what to do.
I was just curious.
But sometimes, though, it does kind of bother me in the sense of he kind of, a few things that I've seen, it feels like he relies on it a little too much. It's become a trope for him. And that kind of irritates me because it's like, okay, I get it, but you can kind of move on from that. You can do other things as well. Like, we don't always have to have the evil priest or the evil nun or the evil altar boy, which would actually be, I would love to see an evil altar boy, actually. So Clive,
let's get that movie made. Evil altar boy.
Yeah.
Next in the Conjuring universe.
I wish he could have written that, because like Barker doing an evil altar boy would have been amazing. Like do the reverse of what we all know, the priest and the altar boy. Do the reverse with the altar boy being the aggressor.
So, all right. So back to this church. The one cool thing about the windows I really like is you've got the verger up at the head, and he's leading the congregation in song. And you see these two red lights peering through the eyes of the creature on the window. And there's a noise that accompanies whenever we see the red lights peering through the window, through the creature's eyes. Have you noticed that the soundtrack accompanies that?
I didn't pick up on the soundtrack. I'll have to go back and check that out. I did like the eyes, though. I got Predator vibes. Like, it was like, you know, the red dots going on. It's like, oh, is this the first victim?
Right. You're like, what is this predicting? So back out in the field, two of the men give up. They're like, bro, this stone ain't moving. We're out of here. Dinner's on the table. The fat one's going to fall over if he doesn't eat immediately.
I was sympathizing with them. I was like, I do anything, go out in the garden, start weeding. It's like 5 minutes later, I'm like, oh my Lord, this is hell. I'm going to go inside and get me a cheese sandwich.
So they leave this one poor guy to his lonesome to keep working on that stone. We cut back to the man now from the church, and he's out in the cemetery taking photographs. His little son comes popping up and says, hey, Mom says it's going to rain, so stop taking photos and let's go have dinner.
The two things I thought about that was, one, when he's driving through the town and the kid's running, because like we don't know at this point that this is, you know, father and son. So I thought it was just some random woman saying, hey, look, there's a car. Go run after the car. What kind of parent does that? Like, seriously.
It's like a dog. Go chase the car.
Go get it, boy. Go get it. And then when he showed up, it was like, I saw the little Nike thing on there. And like, I'm sorry, but the first thought that popped in my mind was like, damn, Nike will sponsor anything these days.
Get it in where you can. That's what they do. So the kid tells his dad, and this is little Robbie, that he's bored and he wants to go home, and he's whining. And the man says, hey, this is the land of our forefathers. So chill out. You shouldn't be bored here. Give me 5 more minutes. And he sends the kid off. And so you're like, okay, they're here on a mission. Obviously, we're not sure what that mission is, but this is the land of their forefathers. So I understand that want. We learn later why he's there, but I was watching something recently. I want to say it was like, Let's Make a Deal or something. And they got a trip to like Norway. And I was like, oh, I've always wanted to go to Norway. And my husband's like, what? And I'm like, because I'm Norwegian mostly, like my background. I'd want to go to the land of my forefathers. And he's like, why? I'm like, sometimes you just don't get it. I just do.
I can understand that, because I'm like majority Irish, and there's a part of me that wants to go to Ireland, but then I was like, well, you know, I could just go to the bar and have the same experience.
Go down to the pub.
I love the kid's response though, with the whole, you know, this is the land of our forefathers, and the kid saying like, yeah, but they left. That is such a smart ass kid answer. And I was like, dude, you cool.
Then can we go home? I'm bored.
Bored? Robbie, how can you be bored? This is the land of your forefathers, remember?
Yeah, and they left.
And I guarantee you will have felt that several more times in this movie, because you appreciate sarcasm and witty dialogue, even in a bad movie. And this movie has quite a bit of it.
Oh, the characters were great in this. I got to give this movie credit. The characters were fantastic. I loved them.
So back out in the field, thunder and lightning is starting up. So a storm is a rolling in, and the man gets the stone to budge. We see some steam get released from under the earth. And I will say, this movie almost had as big a fog budget as the movie The Fog. Did you notice that in a lot of the scenes, there's always like a heavy ball of fog on the ground behind the main characters or the monster?
There was a lot of fog. I was like, okay, this is apparently a really foggy area, which I assume maybe Ireland is. I don't know. I've never been. So
But it wasn't like it was a thin veil of it across the land. It was this ball of white stuff sitting right behind the main action. It's very weird.
the only thing I would have loved to have seen is at one point, like a scene in the movie where it's like two of the locals sitting there, like sipping beers or something and talking about the fog and that thick Irish accent saying, yeah, I thick as pea soup it is, or something like that. Just like, just throw in something stupid like that. Like, okay, you acknowledge the fog. I'm cool.
That's funny. That would have helped. So the stone now falls over. It gives finally. The man watches because he falls to the ground and watches this giant beast leap from out of the ground, roars with this horrible CG background. It just looks terrible. But the monster in this shot itself looks scary because you can't really see it. It's like from the side and he's going roar and you're like, oh shit.
Let's agree to disagree, because when it popped out of the ground, I had like 70s Incredible Hulk vibes. Like when it did that with the popping out of the ground, I was sitting there like, oh my God, this thing just burst out of the ground like the Incredible what the fuck.
The Incredible what the fuck. So we cut to inside the church, and the man who was taking photographs is now inside and he's looking around. He sees the stained glass windows. He's startled by the verger and he says he's looking for Reverend Coote. He introduces himself as Howard Hollenbeck, and the verger says his name is Declan O'Brien, very Irish. And I'm guessing Declan O'Brien in the Ireland is like John Smith in the US. They're everywhere.
I love Irish names, but yeah, it's like sometimes you kind of hear like, 3 or 4 guys have the same name. You're like, wait a second.
Did you laugh though at Howard's joke when he says Reverend Coote might be old? Oh my God. I don't see how the verger doesn't even crack a smile at that. Nothing. His old sourpuss was not amused.
Well, I mean, like I can't really blame him for like being kind of pissy and acting like a douche, because if I had a face like that, I'd probably have the same reaction. So
Also, I had to think to myself, Howard thinks he's funny as hell. He's very pleased with himself when he lets that joke rip. But you got to remember that always US humor doesn't always translate over to other countries.
no, and it's vice versa, because there's times like I used to watch a show on G4 called Ninja Warrior. We got it here too. It's like the American version, not as good as the Japanese version, but they'll have like comedians on there and like they're running an obstacle course and they're doing these weird little skits that like the audience is dying laughing, and I'm sitting here like I don't get it. And it's because of the culture. It's like, you just different things are funny, but also it's like that joke just wasn't that funny because it was a dad joke. So
well, he's a dad. And he's even wearing the sweater.
Oh my God, that sweater. I could not take that man seriously with that sweater.
It's the dad from Growing Pains sweater. Like, it's so bad.
Yeah, like I kept expecting him to pull the priest aside, like, are you okay, champ? You want to talk about it?
Maybe he should have, because that verger seemed like he drank a glass of sour milk the entire time. He looked so pissy.
He either that or he had like a lemon sucker stuck up his ass or something, because that dude was just puckering hard.
So the verger tells Howard, go to the rectory. That's where you'll find the good reverend. And after he leaves, the verger hears some sounds coming from this covered altarpiece that draws him over. He puts his hand on it, and the music, every time somebody comes near this altar, it like makes this weird tone and it revs up. And I don't, sometimes sounds in movies really unnerve me and get under my skin. This was one of them. I couldn't take that noise. Every time I'm like, turn it off. And it maybe helped the scene for me because it was unnerving.
It kind of reminded me a little bit of the sound. And then when he does it and he just gets like the vision thing, I immediately went to Kill Bill when you get that sound that like kind of like, I can't even describe what that sound is of like
I haven't seen Kill Bill.
Oh, okay. First off, you gotta go see Kill Bill. But if you see it, then and people who've seen it will know exactly what I'm talking about. That I call it like the revenge theme, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of that.
Okay. Well, yeah, I should mention when the verger touches this thing, it gets hot and red and heats up, and he sees a little bit of what the monster's seeing. He's like connected to him psychically or in the mind. It translates better in the story that there's this weird connection, this monster and this hold that it has. In the movie, it's kind of weird.
It was interesting. I liked the concept of it, but yeah, I kind of felt like maybe if you wrote it, like reading the story, you kind of pick up like what he was trying to do, and it would seem a little bit more like it would kind of play out better. But yeah, it's like in the movie, it was interesting idea, but I don't think they were able to pull it off right.
Well, yeah,
like,
because the verger gets more info than we are privy to in the movie. Like he sees and is in on a lot more info about Rawhead Rex and where he came from and what he's about. And that doesn't translate in the movie whatsoever.
No, it just, I mean, all I got from it was like basically when he touched the thing, I was just like, damn, apparently Jesus is hot.
So Howard makes it to the rectory. He chats with Reverend Coote, and we see that they have a similar corny sense of humor. So they bond over that because Howard sees the large clock collection that the Reverend has, and he says, "Oh, that's interesting." And the Reverend says, "Yes, it passes the time." And they both get a good chuckle. Dad jokes for days.
This is just like the ultimate dad joke movie, I think.
But it's cute that they bond over that dumb joke.
It is. And they did a good job. I mean, I thought both actors were actually really good in their roles. I really loved David Dukes and
Niall Toybin or Tobin.
I really liked him. In fact, he reminded me of somebody, and I can't place who it was, but he reminded me of another actor, and he was just really good in this.
Agreed. A lot of the time, David Dukes, when he gets scenes later in the movie, feels like he's in a completely different movie. Like he's swinging for the fences. He's going for the Oscar. He's way better than this movie.
He really was. And for a split second, he reminded me of, because I honestly thought it was, and I cannot remember the name of the actor, but the actor who was the pilot in Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead.
Yes.
The original?
The original, yes. Yeah, I don't like the remake sucked.
I don't know the name of the guy, but I can see that. I can see that.
Because I honestly thought it was him. I was like, oh, I liked him in Dawn of the Dead. I'm going to love him in this. And then when I looked him up, I was like, okay, he
not the same guy.
No, he literally only did one other thing I've ever seen. He was in an episode of Barney Miller, and I don't even recall him in that. So,
so the Reverend starts asking Howard, how's it going there? And he says, well, I'm working on my book about sacred sites, more specifically Neolithic and fertility cults from the pre-Christian era. So that's a little dab into kind of what's going on here. The Reverend says Howard can take pictures all you want. You can look at the parish records, whatever you need, no problem for your book. So I was like, oh, okay, that should be interesting, but we don't get any more about that really.
And that was a disappointment because that would have made it more interesting. I like, if you're going to go into the religious aspect of a movie, if that's like where you're headed, I like the research and bringing in like all the sort of like religious, I know they don't like to call it mythology, but I'm going to have to call it mythology in this point. That to me is fascinating. So like when you put that into a movie, that would have been really cool to have delved into that. And I felt like they kind of missed the mark on that.
So one fun thing is Howard tells the Reverend, stay in touch. Let me know when I can have access to the records because I'm staying at the pub, The Tall Man. And then we cut to the sign of The Tall Man. And did you notice the sign? It's like a man and a little kid and maybe another person. And then the tall man almost looks like a creature, not quite like a man.
There was There was several parts in this movie that kind of made me think that there was a history to this creature and the town, that like the people in the town should have known about the creature, because there was signs all over the place. And I thought
literally.
Yeah, literally. I mean, like, the freaking tall man. So it's like, it kind of made it seem like, okay, maybe these people should have known about this thing. And that again was another like ball drop.
Now, I think maybe they do, but they don't tell anybody about it. They don't warn Howard or any other strangers that come in.
It felt like, but it's like then they didn't even like follow through on it. So it was, it kind of felt like this movie had multiple times for its balls to drop, but it didn't quite hit puberty.
So inside, Howard is looking through his books. His two children, the little boy Robbie and the little girl who looks like she's about 5, I'm real bad with that, but her name in this killed me. Her name is Minty, Minty.
I thought that was adorable. I really
What?
did. Me and the girlfriend are always talking about like weird, possibly cool name. I love that stuff. So Minty was adorable. I mean, the
All
little
right.
girl was adorable herself.
She was precious. So the kids are in there, they're playing, they're fighting, they're annoying the mom, his wife, Elaine. She sits down next to Howard and starts complaining she's gonna go nuts. They've been in Ireland almost 2 months and she can't stand another minute of this. And immediately, our big introduction to her, and I fucking was like, bitch, why'd you have kids? Why do you have children?
I literally wrote down Mother of the Year and Wife of the Year.
She's the most unsupportive. Yeah, her character is awful. And she could have been anything. They made her up for the movie. She could have been anything.
Yeah, but I mean, I felt like she gets better a little bit, but like the introduction of her, terrible. Your first introduction, you just like, oh my Lord, this bitch crazy.
Yes. So Howard tells her he needs to see this last church and then they can move on to Dublin. He yells for the kids to quiet down. And then he reminds Elaine that this is a working trip for him. And she snaps at him. Well, you know, you've also got a family. Okay. Why'd you come on this working trip then, bitch? Why didn't you stay home with the fucking kids? I was like livid. Every time I watch this movie, I've seen it 100 times. I fucking hate her more every time. Why'd you come?
Probably because he just didn't trust her with the kids at home. He would have like told him like, hey, go chase that car across the street. Oh, hey, you see that rabid pit bull? He's fun. Go pet him.
Now, I do like that when she goes, you know, you've also got a family. He immediately claps back with oh, that's who those kids belong to. He responds to things that stress him out with humor, and I can relate.
I see. That's why I kind of felt like she was a little bit bitchy, but at the same time, like you kind of saw why they're together because there is this love and this. They both have a little bit of a smart ass kind of nature to them. Like right there, I was like, all right, hashtag relationship goals.
So he reminds her now, the wife, that this is the land of their forefathers and you're from here. So I thought you'd feel more at home here. And we're like, oh, okay. So it's her ancestry that comes back to Ireland. And even though it seems like a little throwaway thing that doesn't mean anything, it comes back in the third act of the film to matter that her bloodline is the ancestry from this place. And you're like, oh, damn it. She's a pivotal character. Now I have to like the bitch.
I love how you immediately hate her, and I'm just kind of like, she's not that bad.
So she says, I love this part too. It's so funny. Their relationship, even though she seems like a bit of a bitch, is cute because she's messing with him. They're very touchy-feely and affectionate and kissy and, you know, hugging. And I like that. And she jokes about the forefather thing. And she goes, oh, that was just a vicious rumor put out by my mother. And he immediately goes, your mother is a vicious rumor. Like, I love him. He just combats everything with corny jokes.
They did a good job with the characters in this. They really did. I loved their relationship. They were so much fun to watch together. They had good chemistry too.
Agreed, actually. Yes. Even though, you know, like I said, she's a bit of a bitch, but he figures out how to make it work. So they agree to just another day or so. And then we cut to a man and his wife in their cute, rustic little farm home situation. Let's talk about this for a sec. Their house is on this little slope of land surrounded by trees. And you can tell they have like an adjoining little side piece to the house. And then there's a wall. And if you go up the steps up to the wall, there's like a barn or something on the side. And then we get a long shot later of the whole property. This is the coolest place. I would totally live here. They have a lot of land and a lot of building for where they're living. It's so quaint.
Again, it comes back to the setting was almost like a character itself. It just, everything looked so beautiful. And like you really did want to live in this little village. And like, that would be the house I would want because it was so nice. It kind of made me wonder, like, you know, it had to be like family property that was handed down because it didn't look like they were well to do enough to be able to afford a place like this.
No. He seemed like they were farmers of some kind because his barn was filled with crates and he had like chickens and stuff like that. So I'm sure that they live off the land and farming and stuff. So the man, Dennis, comes inside and his wife is there cooking. She notices the barn door is flapping open and he's like, oh, damn it. I just closed that. But before he goes back out to close the door, we get this adorable shot. It's real quick where you can see a side profile of her and he reaches over and gives her a kiss on the cheek or something. And he pats her belly, puts his hand on her belly, and you can see she's pregnant. And she just smiles at him and keeps cutting her vegetables and he goes out. And it's the sweetest, quick little moment.
It was really cute. It took me a second though to realize she was pregnant. I thought he was just, into bigger chicks.
Well, again, I've seen it 100 times, so I'm picking up all these little things by now.
Yeah, it was kind of cute. Like they did seem like a really nice couple. I was really fascinated by what the hell she was cooking. I don't know about you, but I'm always obsessed with food in these movies.
Stew. She was making like a beef stew, cutting up the onions, the carrots, the chunks of beef to put in the crock pot, the slow pot.
Oh, okay, because I was like, looked really, really good. I was like,
Irish stew, baby.
My Irish was kicking in. It's like, oh man, I want some whiskey and some stew now.
Your forefathers are calling to you through the movie. So Dennis goes out to the barn. Rawhead Rex, our monster, pops out from behind these crates. Dennis takes off. He's in a hot second. He is out of there. Exactly what I would do too. But because he has to navigate these stairs around the wall to get down, the monster just fucking leaps off the wall and catches him at the bottom of the stairs. And because you can only see the back of the monster, you're not distracted by the bad face. Again, scary moment. I'm trying to outrun you and you fucking leap out in front of me and get me. Ruh-roh.
That was impressive, actually. That actually was a pretty cool scene. I did like it because it did make it seem a little bit more frightening. Like apparently, this monster has been hitting the gym. He's been doing his Pilates and squats, and he's got the looks, man. He's got the looks. He's got the body.
He's surprisingly nimble and limber for somebody who's been in a hole for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Well, apparently they've got like, yoga and stuff in hell. So,
so he's getting mauled by this wall, and the wife looks up and sees this happening from the kitchen window. She screams. The monster hears that and drops Dennis and turns, locks eyes with her. I can't say it enough. Yes, I know. Bad face, bad effect design on the creature here. But the fact that if you just think this monster is killing my husband right in front of my face and then turns around and locks eyes with me, fuck that noise. I am out of here.
I would like to say that in a moment like that, if I saw something like that, it's like monster like that killing a friend or a family member, I would be scared to death too. I would freak out, like, oh my Lord. But I'm sorry, I'm so much of a smartass that the second it turned around, I would just start laughing at it. Like, oh my God, I can't take you seriously.
Well, in her defense, it's mauling somebody and she probably doesn't get a real good look at it. It's a good 20 feet away. I don't know. I'd be scared.
Okay, yeah. If you don't get the up close look at it, I might be a little bit scared.
But it does start running right at her. And again, when a monster runs at me, fuck that, I'm out of here.
What's cool about the run, I will give the run credit. This isn't like a brisk jog. This isn't like even like a monster that like will run on all fours or anything. This thing power runs like it's Jesse fucking Owens or something. It is just hauling ass.
Top speed, yes. So this actress, in my opinion, is killing it with the physicality of her performance, right? She's supposed to be pregnant. The terror on her face sells it for me. She's backing up, you can tell this actress, oh my God, think about people who freeze in the moment. It's like her body, her feet are like stones and they don't want to move and she's frozen, paralyzed with fear, but she's got to work through that and force herself to move. We have to get out of here. I'm pregnant. And you can see that fight, that internal fight in this actress where she's walking down the hall. She's like sliding down she's trying to force her body to go. It's nuts. It's such a crazy performance in this movie.
She did a really good job. I was impressed because I did feel like the fear. I did kind of feel that coming off of her. And like you said, the struggle of like, okay, I've got to try to survive. And like even just the way her movements were, like you could tell she's afraid, she's pregnant, she's not trying to do too much to like hurt the baby, but she's trying to get away. She nailed that. She really did a great job.
So she makes it out of there and heads down this hall and up to a bedroom, up some stairs. And in the kitchen now, the monster's in the kitchen. And this cracked me up because he does it more than once in the movie, and I'll point it out again later. He just hates eggs and flour, I guess, because it's spaghetti. He just starts swiping his hand across and leveling everything on the kitchen table and everything on the counter. He must just hate food, human food.
I took it more as like, this isn't just a monster that's there to terrify and maim and kill people. And like, just, he's also a dick. He wants to make a mess. He's going to be like, if you survive, I'm going to be a dick and make you clean this place up, because this is what I do. I come from hell and I'm an asshole.
That's got to be it, because he just completely wrecks this kitchen. And to what end? He's not going to eat any of it.
Either that, or maybe he's just watched too much Hell's Kitchen and he's like channeling his inner Gordon Ramsay. He's like, this is just terrible.
So the monster makes his way up to the room where she's hiding, busts in. And I think I have a shot of this for social media, as I did a couple of times. The shot of this thing standing in the doorway. Again, not a zoom in on his terrible looking face, the special effects face, but the costume, just the image in the doorway. This guy's fucking huge. This is very, what's the word I'm looking for? He's very, it's a presence. Like he's just, you're not getting away from this thing. He basically takes up the whole fucking doorway. So in that split second, you're laying on the floor and here comes this thing who just mauled your spouse. You're like, I'm fucking dead. I can't get past this thing. It's as big as the fucking house. There's nowhere to go. It's tense for me. I'm like, fuck, what do you do?
This is hilarious. Like you're just like in the moment like this. You're talking about it, the love, and like the only thing that popped through my mind when I saw this thing come in like that, like how you're saying, like the intimidating look in the doorway and the costume and the hair and everything. I was like, oh shit, this is Gene Simmons on steroids.
Yeah, fair. So he reaches down, and as his nails on his hand, I guess, can retract and expand, and they come out, and he's going to swipe her belly and kill her. But when he gets close to the belly, the nails retract and he pulls back and doesn't hurt her in that moment. And we cut away. So we don't know what happens. Now, again, this is cheesy and silly and looks bad. But if you're paying attention to the theme in the movie, which will be revealed again in the third act, there's a reason that he doesn't go into her belly and go for the baby. It makes sense later.
I'm sure it does. I am. But I just could not get past the terrible looking hands and claws.
It's bad. I give it to you.
It's so bad.
So outside now, we get an outside shot and we just hear him roar. And then we cut to Howard and his wife walking outside, and she kind of hears it. And she stops and like looks, and she's like, oh, nothing, but she hears it. Howard says, oh, it's just thunder. He comments he could live here because it's quiet and charming. And I'm like, I agree. Yeah. I love it. But Elaine snarkily says back to him, and dead. This town is dead. Well, yeah, it's not happening. I'll give you that as well. Okay.
Doesn't look like it's got a nightlife. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's no discotheques, or they probably don't even have a Walmart yet. I mean, that Starbucks is just coming in. So
well, I love that she says and dead, and then his immediate response is, well, as a historian, I prefer dead things. And she goes, I'll bear that in mind. And then they kiss. It's like, ew, gross. I don't need to know about your bedroom play.
It's disgusting, but it's also kind of cool and cute. Like I said, it's like that's the relationship you kind of want, of like being able to just be a complete smartass with your significant other.
True. So they start tongue kissing and making out right on the middle of the fucking sidewalk, which also, I'm all for a sweet kissy relationship, but I don't need to see big old slices of tongue flying in and out of people's mouths. That grosses me out for some reason, like on movies and TV. So I was grossed out by this. A little old woman in a red hooded coat approaches them, and instead of going around them, gets them to separate. She clears her throat and they're like, oh, sorry. And they separate so she can pass by. Now, again, when the third act comes around, it all makes sense. But in this moment, you're like, bitch, go around them. They don't even need to see her, acknowledge her, go around them.
No, I don't think she was trying to get through. I think she was trying to join them. I think she just like enjoyed watching. She's like, hey, give me some of that action too. Because I mean, she's like old and lonely. Probably in a little while since anyone's dusted out the cobwebs and her piping.
Oh my God. Call a plumber, bitch. Calm down.
Exactly. Now, interesting thing about this, I picked this up, and since you haven't seen this yet, you haven't watched the DVD or the Blu-ray thing. According to the director and the commentary on the DVD, this scene was supposed to be an homage to something called Don't Look Now. I didn't get to follow up on like why or how, and I was bringing it up because I thought, well, you know horror better than I do. You watch more than I do, so maybe you know what that means.
I wish I did.
It's fascinating now because it said like the brief scene with the woman wearing the red coat. And so I was like, okay, this is interesting. Like, was it another movie he directed? I mean, I'm curious now. I kind of want to look it up.
I am so going to look that up when we're done. I don't know.
Yeah.
But okay. But for the purposes of the film, it does come back later within the film. So Elaine says she gets the feeling that she knows this lady. Like she seems really familiar. And you're like, oh, okay. That's why she had to be seen by Elaine, because Elaine has to make that comment because it all comes back later. That's why the bitch couldn't just go around.
Well, I mean, she's old too. She probably doesn't want to go around. That's like an extra couple of steps, The older you get, your hip starts to hurt, your back starts to hurt. You just like, get the hell out of my way. I don't want to walk around you.
So a friend of Dennis's, or delivering supplies, I don't know, shows up at the house, sees all the damage in the kitchen, goes up and finds the pregnant wife alive. Dennis's body is now gone also.
Am I the only one who, when I saw this guy, I got grown-up Ron Weasley vibes?
No, I thought that too.
I saw it, I was like, damn.
So that night, police and an ambulance are there, and the EMTs are taking the wife away, the pregnant lady. Inspectors are discussing what they think is going on, what's happening. They hypothesize Dennis is clearly dead, even though they can't find the body. It must have been a revenge killing by several people. I'm like, you're in this quaint little town of 200 people and you think there's some massive revenge killing that happened? What?
These were terrible cops. I kind of feel like the last case that these cops got to was the bottom of a case of Malamars.
It's bad. I was like, no, guys. So then we cut to the monster dragging Dennis's body through the woods. Good shot. Dennis looks gross and dead and bloody and scratched up. Back at the hotel, Howard gets dressed and tells his wife he can't sleep, so he's going to go for a walk. Cut to a small trailer park or caravan where a bunch of little medium-sized trailers are all in a round.
Ain't no party like an Irish trailer park party.
Holla. So inside one of them, we see a teenage girl, maybe 18-ish, babysitting her younger brother who looks maybe 12. The kid's watching TV, playing with his toys. He's visibly annoyed that his sister is sitting right in front of him on these little couches, making out with her boyfriend right in front of him. He's clearly annoyed by this.
And who wouldn't be?
So the monster is roaming around the park. We get monster POV, which is always fun because you don't know what you're getting. And he's looking in windows and looking around the caravan. So now inside, this couple, the boyfriend is Andy, calls the little brother a plethora of names, rude to him, grabs one of his toys away from him, and takes the girl outside for privacy. They're going to go make out outside. It's clearly nighttime and chilly out. And this dick is so set on getting some that he doesn't care.
And I love how he gets so pissy at the little kid that he can't hump his girlfriend in front of the little kid.
Yes.
What the hell is wrong with you, dude?
And this dude looks like he's 30, by the way.
Well, it is the 80s. It is Ireland. We don't know what happens there. What happens in Ireland stays in Ireland.
And also in the 80s when teenagers were played by 30-year-olds. So the monster's dragging Dennis's body around. He goes into the woods and Andy and the girl head into the woods to make out. The young boy goes out and decides to go look for them because he's pissed off that the guy took a toy and dropped it on the ground. And then I guess the monster walking through stepped on it. So he thinks Andy broke his toy. So he's pissed and he goes in looking for them.
I love how he's ready to whoop some ass. Like this little 12-year-old kid's like, I'm going to go whoop your ass now.
Yes. And he comes across the monster who has Dennis's body now strung up predator style in the trees. And he's going to town on it. So the kid sees this happening and sees the monster rip the shirt off of Dennis. And you're like, ooh, he's going to rip him open. And we cut away. This movie did not have enough gore for me for a monster movie.
Yeah, I was really let down on that, like, especially for a Clive Barker movie. I was expecting a lot more gore, and for it to be this bad, it should have been a lot. The two things that was missing for a bad movie like this, the two requirements are: one, lots of gore; two, lots of tits.
Right. Agreed.
Bad movies have to have that to be a bad movie.
You and your titties, you're just obsessed. You just have to have titties in your movies.
It's not even that I want to see the titties. It's just that
Don't mind.
I've seen, once you see one pair of titties, you want to see them all. Okay. But I've seen enough of these movies to realize it's like, that is the requirement. For the movie to be this shitty, you got to have a titty.
So now we're in the trailer with an old married couple. The husband has a beer in his hand and he's half passed out on the couch, and the wife is watching TV and knitting. And then there's a knock at the door, and it's the little boy who's traumatized because he saw the monster eating Dennis and then ran back to the park. He's shaking and looks like he's in fucking shock. We learn his name is Neil because I love the way the lady talks, her accent, which is natural for her. It's an accent to me. When she goes, it's little Neil. Little Neil's at the door. And I'm like, oh, I love it. I can't do accents, but there you go.
I can't really either. I try to, but I'm terrible at them. But I love, especially to me, Irish accent is like the sexiest accent in the world to me.
You don't say. Really?
Yeah. For me, it's all about the Irish accent.
Okay. So back in the woods now, Andy is still pushing the girl against the tree. We learn her name is Katrina. She is trying to say, look, I don't want to do this. I'm getting cold. I want to talk to you. I don't want to make out. And he's groping her and trying to push himself on her. And I would be bothered by this, but she isn't really fighting hard enough to say no, if you know what I mean.
Well, what is it? Like Sean Connery used to say, 50 no's and a yes equals yes.
Oh my God. Well, no, not quite. What I'm saying is she's still kissing him back and like in between kisses going like, I don't really want to do this. I don't know if we should be out here. You know, like, it's like, stop kissing him and giving him love if you're trying to put your foot down. It's mixed messages, I guess, is what I'm saying.
It would be a little confusing.
So she finally thinks she hears something and she storms off upset. She's like, I'm out of here. He follows right behind her, begging her not to go. They bump into the dead body swinging from the tree.
Is it just me? I mean, you've watched enough of these movies too, but is it just me? Or does it always seem kind of funny that the horny guys never hear the noise? It's always the woman. The woman gets startled. Oh, did you hear that? Did you hear that? And the guy is just like, the blood is not in his brain at the moment and he's not hearing this. And it's like, if you stop for a second, you're going to survive.
No, you're exactly right. They are so one-track minded and getting what they want in this moment that they are blocking everything else out. So he's all slashed up, but again, minimal blood and gore, just like the slash marks, not gory enough. Katrina screams and they run off. They grab hands and run off. So as they're running, the monster leaps out of nowhere and you just see his mouth and the roar and he goes down to Andy's arm. And then we cut. We don't see anything happen. And it's really fucking funny that Katrina comes running out of the woods up to the crowd of people in the caravan. And she's going, oh my God, Andy. And she pulls up and it's just his hand and his wrist. She's still holding his hand that's been severed. And she drops it and screams. It's so funny.
It was so bad because it's like you're thinking, okay, you would know that he's gone. Like, even though you're holding the hand and even though you're in panic, you're going to feel the fact that you're not yanking on another person anymore.
There's no pull on the weight. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like the only, like, if they could have like addressed it in some way of like, she was in such shock and panic that she knew he was dead, but she just forgot she was holding the hand. You could have pulled that off beautifully, but it's like, it came off so fucking cheesy.
They played it wrong for sure. Oh, I agree for sure. So we cut to Howard out for his stroll. He's trying to just clear his head and catch a smoke. He looks up at this ridge and he sees Rawhead standing there. And in a split second, it disappears. And in my opinion, again, the far shots do it for me. It's fucking freaky. You're out on the moors, in the woods, wherever, by yourself. You look up and there's this fucking big ass weird thing. You don't know what it is staring at you still. That would fucking freak me out, man. I'm telling you.
It's freaky, but I think, like, thinking back on it now, one of the things that bothered me with this monster was it literally does look like an 80s metalhead. The costume does not fit a scary monster. Like, it just, like, no monster like this demon in general is not going to be wearing pants.
I get it. I see what you're saying. So then we see a bunch of men with guns in the woods who came from the caravan. They're determined to find this body. They believe everything the kid and Katrina has told them.
Which I do love. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I do love that it's kind of pulling on the old monster trope of, okay, well, the villagers are going to go out now in search of the creature and kill it.
Right?
I always love that concept.
All they were missing was torches.
If they could have had torches, I would have been in love.
So Howard makes it back to his hotel and tells his wife and daughter, who are still awake, that he thinks there was an accident up in the hills. And the part that's funny to me is the little girl. She's like, did you see any bodies? Was there any blood? She's like 5.
Well, I mean, it kind of makes sense because earlier we did get the scene where it sounds like, you know, part of their sex games is a necrophilia game. So I guess maybe it's just like genetic.
So these men out in the woods stumble on Andy's body. We get a little bit of slash and gore, but not a lot.
I would like more slash and gore, like you said, but it did seem kind of cool that, like, just a small chunk of his torso is ripped off. Like, it just, that seemed a little bit like kind of mildly gruesome, but just cool enough that I was like, okay, I dug that.
Agreed. So back at the hotel, the wife is tucking the kids back into bed. And to me, just maybe me, I don't have a thing for clowns, but this creepy little cloth clown doll that she tucks Minty in with, her little clown doll, his name is Icky. So first of all, this bitch drags this little clown doll all the way to Ireland. His name is Icky. How comforting can that be? I need to get in bed and cuddle with my Icky.
Obviously this child is going to grow up and need some therapy.
Right?
That is definitely, yeah. I mean, like, let alone, why do you have a clown doll? I mean, like, so I'm not terrified of clowns either, but they're ugly enough that, you know, unless it's selling me a $2 hamburger or something like that, I don't care about clowns. They suck.
They're not comforting. And then to name it Icky, which is like the least comforting thing you could call it.
I kind of wonder if, like, and I don't have children, so I wouldn't know, but people who have children may, do they just come up with the weirdest, stupidest names for their dolls? Is that how this works?
Pretty much. If you watch any TV and movie, you should know that. People have bizarre names for things. Okay, so the next day, the police are at the scene in the field. They find the dead body where Rawhead Rex was unearthed from that stone. And they assess, and they say this, that the guy's probably been dead 24 hours. And they also mention that this is body number 3. So we're getting a little bit of a body count here from the monster. Also, he did all that in 24 hours. That's pretty impressive.
You know, he's very motivated at what he does. I'm impressed with his work ethic, I guess you will say.
So back in town, Howard goes to the police station. And by station, I mean a place that looks like 2 little hotel rooms in an old small stone building. This does not look like a police station whatsoever.
No, they're obviously not equipped to handle anything like this. I kind of feel like their biggest case is probably a couple of missing chickens.
I got the same feeling. So he goes in and he meets with another a cop that's off to the side, but then the main guy, Inspector Gissing. And Inspector Gissing is Niall O'Brien. There's another O'Brien for you. And this guy is really, really good at walking that fine line of dumbass cop and complete prick. Really, really good at it. Good job, Niall.
He was the most annoying, but also, like, interesting character at the same time. Like, every time he was on screen, I wanted to see more of him because it's like, what the hell is going to come out of his mouth?
So Howard tells them he saw something. He doesn't think it was human. It was at least 8 or 9 feet tall. It had red eyes. And the one cop says, "Oh, maybe you saw cattle. You're in cattle country. Maybe." And the guy, Howard's like, "Really, bro? I know what a cow looks like. Like, come on." So they're not taking him seriously at all. To me, because I love cryptids so much and Bigfoot, I was like, why don't they think maybe it's like the Irish wild man, like their version of Bigfoot? Why aren't they thinking, oh, maybe he did see something?
Yeah, maybe it was like Big Mouth.
No, I looked it up. They have somebody called the Irish wild man. So I'm like, well, why wouldn't they think, oh, let's add it to the files of, the Bigfoot files for Ireland?
That actually would have made more sense, because it's like, yeah, I could see like cops probably get like, the people in the South that report Bigfoot sightings, and cops just roll it off like, yeah, whatever, crazy people. So that actually would have made it a little bit more believable, because yeah, the cow thing was just like, all right, you are just being a dick.
Yes. Like, don't completely, even if you're going to dismiss him, don't do it to his face. Be like, oh, okay, well, if you want to make a report, go ahead, but don't, I don't know. I don't like the dismissive attitude. So Howard gets frustrated, of course, because they're joking with him, and he leaves. He goes to the church to see about the parish records with Reverend Coote. The good Reverend tells Howard that the records appear to have been stolen or removed from the parish. So I don't know what to tell you. Sorry.
But I don't know about you. Like the first couple of times you saw it, maybe you felt the same way I did. When he first said that, I almost got the vibe like maybe he was lying about it and like hid the records. Like, oh, I don't want you seeing it because the records are going to be something important later on. So I kind of got like a bad guy vibe from him for just a brief moment.
That makes sense, actually, because I remember way back when I saw this for the very first time, I was along for the ride and just like taking it in. And I'm like, oh, why would he hide the records from him? Yeah, like what's going on? So Howard just goes back into the church and starts taking more pictures of the stained glass windows. And he translates some of the writing on the window with the monster to say, "Death goes in fear of what it cannot be." And I'm like, interesting. It makes sense later. But right now I'm like, okay. Death being the monster, obviously.
Now, you may need to explain that to me when we get to the end, because I do remember it, but I didn't quite make the connection. And I don't know if it's just because by the end of this movie, I was so exhausted that I was just like, I just zoned out, or what.
This is why the rewatch will be necessary. It'll all make sense more, and hopefully it'll grow on you, and it'll be one of those movies that you can put in like on Halloween time and just laugh. I don't know. Okay, so he gets startled by a very unkempt verger. This guy looks disheveled. He looks mad all the time, like he's got a stick up his ass, and bumps into him and makes him drop his camera, and then steps on the camera, the verger does, and tells Howard to get the fuck out. Dude is pissed.
He did a great job playing this crazy character, because I was actually sucked into believing he was that much of a dick. He really nailed that role. I give him major props.
Oh, everything about the performances, it's all about the delivery. Like, you 100% believe he is this guy, and this guy is just fucking nuts. But Howard grabs him by the shirt, gets in his face, and he says a fantastic line back to him. Do you remember what he says?
I'm trying to remember something. Oh God, I should have wrote this down.
I did. Go ahead.
I think it was something like, "I'll get the fuck out," or something like that. Oh God, I can't. You have to say. I cannot remember it.
He goes real serious. He goes, "I'll get the fuck out, and you be very fucking glad." Because you just know Howard's gonna beat his ass if he doesn't leave right now.
That's right. This is one of, because there's another line that happens later on in the movie that I wanted to write down, and I'm hoping you caught it because it was amazing. This is the other one that it's like, I should have wrote that down because it was really good.
And the delivery too, like, but what's funny is Howard looks like he's gonna beat the shit out of him if he doesn't leave right now. But the verger looks like he couldn't care less. Like if Howard hits me right now, I don't care. He just seems like he's insane.
He played crazy really well. Like he really did a good job. You felt like, yeah, he was not concerned with his own safety, his own well-being. The look of him, like I say, it looked like he hasn't showered or anything in days. He's just completely off the rails. it was a good performance. I thought he did a great job. I'm kind of surprised that some of these actors didn't go on to do like other things that I'm familiar with.
So then we cut to Howard and the family loading up the minivan, and they're getting ready to head out. And we get some really cute banter between him and his bitch wife with the map stuff. It's believable. Their relationship is fully believable.
It really was. Like I said, they had great chemistry because I felt like they were a real couple. And it did make me kind of feel like, okay, yeah, that is kind of what I would want in a relationship, is to be able to be that much of a smart ass with who I'm with.
Right. So they don't drive for very long when little Robbie, who's reading a comic book, and I couldn't quite make out what the title was of the comic book.
See, when I looked at it, it is, I don't know what issue number, it is Secret Wars #2.
Okay.
The second Secret Wars. But when I looked at the thing, they said it is Marvel's UK's Secret Wars #37, which was dated 15th of March, 1986. I didn't know the UK had a separate Secret Wars. So that's new to me.
And it was clearly current for the time when they filmed this.
Yep.
Interesting. Thank you for looking that up. All I could see was sort of a comic book, and I thought I saw the word wars. Yeah. So he's sitting there complaining, is there a McDonald's in Dublin? And for a split second, he was my spirit animal. Wherever I go, I'm like, where is there a McDonald's? Because I know I can eat McDonald's if all else fails.
Every now and then you're going to get the hankering for some chicken nuggets.
Chicken nuggies. So Minty, the little girl, asks if they're almost there. They've been in the car 6 minutes. Are we almost there? Are you kidding me?
She's a child. She doesn't understand the concept of time yet.
That's why I always say my dog is like a small child. She doesn't get the concept of time either. So Elaine says that she thinks she saw something in a field when they drive by a field real fast. And so Howard backs it up so they can take a look. And it's a large ass scarecrow, clearly for the audience, for us, meant to resemble Rex. Because it's a big ass scarecrow with no face, like leather patches on it or something for clothing. Like it clearly is meant to look like the monster. Like, come on.
It's a freaky ass scarecrow, but at the same time, it is the most unrealistic scarecrow, because every time I've ever seen one, it's like basically scarecrows are farmers taking like leftover old clothing, sticking it on some shit, and putting it out in the field. This thing was like, I don't know who has that much leather, but apparently they're a very, very freaky couple or something.
Well, it's left over from the people who dressed Rex. It's all that rocker leather.
His former bandmates.
So once they decide it's nothing and they're getting ready to leave again, this is where you get one of the funniest little comments to me in the movie. It's perfect dad humor. Howard asks Robbie, you guys ready to go? And the kid just goes, yeah. And Howard goes, your enthusiasm overwhelms me. I would be such a smart ass to my kids like that too.
I that's the kind of parent I would end up being, is exactly like that.
Yeah. I mean, you're a dick to them without being a real dick. Like that's so fucking, your enthusiasm overwhelms me.
That's the fun of being a parent, I think, is that you could be like a dick, but like a PG dick.
Right? I mean, I do that with my dog, but it falls on deaf ears. She doesn't appreciate it. All right, listeners, that is going to wrap up our part 1 coverage of the amazing monster movie, Clive Barker's Rawhead Rex. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Make sure you come back next week. Next Monday, we will have the conclusion of this episode, part 2. I promise it's going to be continuing the craziness and just as much laughs. If you want to check out Rawhead Rex, at the time of this recording, it was available for free on Tubi, as well as pay streaming on YouTube and Vudu. So until next time, goodbye.
What did you do that for? Get the fuck out of here. There's nothing here for you. You fuck.
Yeah, I'll get the fuck out of here. And you'll be very fucking glad. That's a little present for you. Goddamn maniac.
Hey listeners, Drive-In Dave here, saying we know you have a lot of options when it comes to podcasts, so we want to thank you so much for listening to ours. Please be sure to follow us on all your social media platforms. Join us in the Bad Movie Conversation. We're on Facebook with a Let's Talk Turkeys page, as well as a discussion group where you can chat with other people who also love bad movies. We're also on Instagram at Let's Talk Turkeys, all one word. Plus, we're on Twitter with the handle at Gobble Podcast. That's GOBBLEPODCAST. And of course, you can always email us direct at Let's Talk Turkeys, all one word, at yahoo.com.
You still here? It's over. Go home. Go.